Welcome to No More Secrets on Sunday, the podcast where silence ends and healing begins. I'm your host, Nacrissa J, Vil, here to guide women on a journey of reclaiming their voice, rebuilding sacred spaces within, and thriving beyond trauma. I'm here with my co-host, Chariece Cylar, and each month we'll shatter the silence that holds us back and share stories that empower and explore tools to heal, grow, and live boldly. It's time to break free. Together, let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to No More Secrets on Sunday podcast, where silence ends and healing begins. I am your host, Nacrissa J. Vil, and my co-host,
Chariece Cylar.
And we're excited to share with you today our topic on the need to be needed and when love becomes a trap. So let's talk about being in a trap.
That word trap.
The word trap.
I mean, now they use it like rap music, trap music.
Trap house. You know, we're not talking about that.
No, we're not talking about that type of trap.
Specifically talking about the traps that we get into when it comes to that need to be needed.
Absolutely.
Want to be wanted, the desire to be desired. Tell me a little bit about what comes to mind when you think about that.
You know, it's crazy because it can come from so many spaces, right? You don't even realize you might have a need to be needed. It's kind of something that develops over time. If you ever get, look at patterns, you're like, oh, for some people, it might be, I never got picked for anything in school, right? I last on the team, never picked at all. Or maybe you were always popular. I know I was deemed the popular girl, but people think if you are popular, if everyone everyone loves you, that you still don't have a need. There's still a void somewhere. And I think that's where all this comes from, because wherever there's a void, there's the potential of a trap, right? Because other people are observing the void. They may notice your void before you do.
Right, which is pretty much what has happened to any individual who has experienced what we talk about in No More Secrets.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit like an experience possibly that you've had makes you come to mind. I'll tell you, when we first started this conversation, it was over text message.
Yes.
And it was just like popped out of your head and you were like, hey, let me run this down with you so we can maybe bring it to a wider audience, because it's a really important topic for people to understand. What was going through your mind when that came to you?
Immediately, I don't even know where it came from. To be honest with you, I was out taking care of stuff for work and running errands. And I stopped driving. I parked the car and I was like, need to be needed. Oh my gosh. It's such an issue, but it's such a wide issue, right? But for me, I started thinking about my experiences. One in particular would be like a worship institution. And that's what just popped in my head immediately. So with my experience would be staying in a situation longer than needed would be like, for me, it would be like a worship institution. So this is how I look at things. Okay. So
let's break it down.
Let's go there.
Let's do it. That's what we're here for.
I equate to staying somewhere longer than needed to having something longer than an expiration date. Yeah.
That's good.
So for me,
that's good.
For me, it's
gonna get spoiled.
Eventually it spoils. And if you keep it longer and you still consume it, you're gonna get sick, correct?
Yes.
So I feel that that's the same thing when you stay somewhere longer than needed. You begin to feel uncomfortable. You begin to feel uneasy, as if you've been violated without a physical violation. It doesn't even have to be a physical violation, but you can still feel that way. It still equates. And that's why I feel like, I equated to being somewhere beyond the expiration date. I was at an institution and, they will love on you. People equate love bombing to relationships, but they don't equate it to when you're also in these worship institutions. Because let me tell all of you, love bombing, it's true in every situation, not just relationships, in every situation. Churches will love bomb you. Oh, you are so talented. Oh my goodness. Can you lead this? Can you be over that? Can you? If you're actually genuine about the accolades, like if you're genuine about it, okay? If I'm loving on you and then 10 years later, I'm still loving on you the same, I truly love you. If I love on you hardcore for like a year, some people drag it out. They can love on you hard, gifts, flowers, this, that, public, affection. Like, oh, let me put you on Facebook and let me put you on everything across every social media platform. I love this person. I love this person for like 2 years. And then once you're comfortable, once you feel like this is such a safe space for me, I can say anything to this person. I can be myself. The moment you're all in and they figure in some way that they got you, whether it be a marriage, whether it be you sign on a dotted line for something, it changes. You're not going to get complimented anymore. You are going to get controlled. Where are you going? What are you doing? How long are you going to be there? Who with who? I'm video calling you right now. The phone around the room. I want to see. Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. And what people have to learn with that
in ministry.
In ministry, it doesn't change. See, people equate, and nothing against everyone who, amen, praise the Lord. But in reality, when you've been through some things, I don't sugarcoat anything. So when you've been through some things, you got to be honest about it. It still exists in ministry. The approach is just a little different. Now they're going to love on you hardcore. You are so talented. We heard you sing. We heard you dance. Can you do this? Can you do that? You're like, oh my God, I've never felt so appreciated for my talents. This is great. My last place I went to wouldn't even let me clap my hands. I could come here and do this. Oh, I can sing here. Yeah. That's great. Get comfortable. Before you know it, how dare you? What if you visit your cousin's church that day because they were doing something? There's places that are like, well, why were you over there?
Yes.
What were you doing?
Yes.
What did you say?
Specifically, check with me first.
Check with me first.
So that I can make sure it's okay.
Permission factor is always the one that hits me. I think my heart just jumped out of my chest because you hit you that. So like for me, it was, did you send an email to see if it was okay to visit your mom?
It happens over time and you don't realize it's happening.
But no, that's a real thing, right? And so what ends up happening? You stay longer, and you stay longer for various reasons. And here was the thing with me. You stay longer because for some people, it's fear out of not knowing what comes after that, right? Yeah. Where do I go to next? Because I never trusted anything before. Yeah. And I was raised in the church. Both sets of parents are pastors, right? Half my siblings are pastors. This is nothing new to me. So that part, I didn't carry that particular weight because been there, done that. I come from this, right? Yeah. That wasn't it. But the other side of it more so was, what are the effects after and how do I get out of this? People do not understand because I know somewhere, someone is thinking, what do you mean? How do you get out of it? It's church. Just leave. Oh no. That's not how that works.
It doesn't.
It does not work that way. When you are a part of a worship institution, especially one that is love bombing you, you have to remember one thing. Stave, because in my experience, they use my connections. They use my talent, took all of my time. And then, like you just mentioned, nothing was done without, all of a sudden this word permission kept coming up. You need permission to do regular, everyday things that maybe the only day you can go to the store happened to be that day. Did you get permission to go to the grocery store? And so sometimes you're just like, after they drain you, after the scales come off of your eyes and you get to see places and things for what they really are, when you get to recognize the love bombing, you step back and say, okay, now I need a plan. What do I do? What is the plan to get out of this? How do I escape this?
I think we're addressing that conversation. We are addressing individuals who have this experience. Yes. We're not negating the fact that there are good places of worship and ministries out in the world. We're not negating that, but there needs to be a space for people who are not in those situations, who are experiencing this need to be needed and falling into these traps. They need a space, and that's what we're here for.
The need to be needed is the trap. And like I said, for me, it's the expiration date. You stay past the expiration date, guess what? You're mentally sick, physically sick. We've seen it.
And you lose who you are.
Oh, you completely lose it.
We talk about that in No More Secrets on Sunday, where there's a quote in chapter 22, and it says, I've forgotten who I am without this silence. So we can talk about self-erasure. You begin to, because now you're kind of wrapped up in it now. So you're not going to really, that's where the silence starts to become a part of it, because now it's almost like an embarrassment of, I don't want to, let people know that I got roped into this. I got duped. Now you're trying to figure out your way out.
They're like, you're too smart to get duped, right? You're like, people know I have intelligence.
How do I get out of this with people realizing what really happened,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So now you're kind of silent about what really was going on, which allows other people to experience the same thing because nobody's speaking up. And now you are starting to experience that self-erasure.
Because think about it, as a woman, we already go through enough of that. Can you be a businesswoman and a mother? Like, you don't ask a guy, like, can you be a businessman and a mother?
It's the whole superwoman trope.
Yeah, they don't say, they look at the guy, they're like, oh, they're married. The wife handles it, but for me, I'm a businesswoman, always have been before I had children. But here I was just smiling along, right, to get through it. And no one really knowing what was happening in my household because it was pretty bad. The thing that was crazy was when I finally slowly started speaking, right, I was so silent about everything. And as we know, that silence creates self-induced harm, right? So I'm getting sicker and sicker. And I don't know why I'm getting worse, but it's my silence, right? Because I'm just like, I'm also protecting his image so that no one really knows what's going on. They still don't know what's going on, right? So, but I do all these things to protect. And I'm carrying children and I'm just smiling through it. That's the job. And then the craziest thing happened. I received a phone call and some people I haven't seen in a long time. At this point, I haven't been away from my kids. They're anywhere I go, they're with me. He got to be alone all the time. He got to shut himself off, sleep, eat, think, be with adults. Not me. I didn't get to do any of that. When they called, I'm like, or do I take them with me? And I don't know what came over me. But I was like, no. I get to be a grown up. I get to be an adult. What happened to me? I'm not this person. Where did I go? Evidence of that was I decided to go. When I went, everyone's mingling, laughing. Do you know, I sat there majority of the time just like this. And they said, Chariece, what's wrong? I said, oh, nothing. I'll be back. Went to the bathroom, broke down crying. It wasn't until that moment I didn't remember how to speak with adults or engage with adults. It was literally like someone took my brain, my very intelligent brain. I have multiple degrees. I am a businesswoman. I have done all these things, but for some reason, I felt like someone took a plug out of me all these years. And I literally didn't even know how to start a conversation. I didn't even know what to say, what to do, anything. I felt so lost, but I was so happy to see them and couldn't even converse. Came back from the bathroom and I was just like, come on, Chariece, you can do this. But it's in those moments where you don't realize you've been erased. And here I was just suffering, and you will lose yourself. And that need to be needed. And, that desire, get into these traps. Let's get to these traps though, because what I felt was experiences. So your past experiences, sometimes there's a pattern there. Okay. And how we end up, even the worship institutions we previously just discussed, sometimes when you may have been neglected from your parents, loved ones, family, bad relationships. I've known a few people when a physical relationship was no longer, it dissolved, they had no one to turn to. So they was just looking for someone or something. And that is how you end up in these cults or in these places. But it becomes a pattern where if your family used you in every way, then you break away from there thinking you found safety, and you end up with the love bombing of one place that eventually is the same thing you ran away from. And you can run from that and eventually still end up, because the core of it has never been dealt with.
Exactly. So it doesn't start in that sacred space. It doesn't, it's something that's running through that entire time that you're searching and you're looking and you're trying to find, and you have this desire and this need and this opportunity to be wanted, to be, felt like you matter, that you have value.
That you have value. It's something you said in chapter 10 of No More Secrets on Sunday, when silence became the loudest. And I'm just going to read this quote. This section explores entering ministry, confusing validation with spiritual intimacy, and the cycle of seeking emotional safety from unhealthy sources. There's a clear line between needing to be wanted and falling into the arms of a spiritual authority mimics past harm, truly mimics. It mimics. And that's the path.
Yeah, because I came from childhood up. So it was the same search, the same need. When I came to the ministry that I was a part of, previously I had just lost my fiance. So I was in a very low space, an open space to all of the love and affection that I was receiving had been snatched away. So again, I found myself, looking for that need to be needed, that want to be wanted.
Losing your fiance and anything to that notion I mean, your whole entire vulnerability is exposed, isn't it? In so many factors, actually, that so many different wounds. Because if you think about it, you're feeling this emptiness, but someone else recognizes that emptiness. And even for someone else that might even know about the story, they can use all of that to say, you know what, listen, you don't have to go through this alone. And from then they start love bombing.
Right, right. And when you get into those chapters 10, that says where the silence becomes loud, because you want to keep that connection.
Yeah.
So you're going to keep silent about everything that's going wrong with that connection.
Yes.
So connection feels good in one sense. Because let's be honest, you wasn't sitting over there like, oh no, I'm being love bombed. Oh
this
my.
is so horrible. Stop. Please stop loving me.
No.
Please stop sending me wonderful things and saying wonderful things about me. I hate it. I hate it so much.
You think I'm a beautiful person?
Oh my God.
No, you can't. No, that's not what's going on. So when you feel good in one aspect, all of that negativity, all of that things, the trauma that is piling up at the same time, you keep, it's like sweeping it under the rug. They ain't really mean it like that. Well, it's no big deal that I have to ask for permission. You keep making excuses.
Oh, they were just having a bad day. They were just upset that moment. Something bad must have happened.
In ministry and relationships, you do the same thing, right? You look at this person, you think they love bombed you, they put you into these spaces, and then you just say, they were just having a bad night. They're not themselves today.
Not today. They had a rough day.
Well, their coworker got on their nerves, so they're taking it out on me. It's not really who they are. You're going to find reasons to stay silent about the truth of what's happening, and that is you are tied into your need to be needed, and you have lost your identity.
You feel like who's going to believe you anyway? Because everyone else there is tied to their need to be needed.
Literally, my friend just said that yesterday. Who's going to believe me anyway? I feel that in my soul when I say who is going to believe me.
Who?
And I know there's people out there that are like, yeah, I feel that.
I feel that.
You have to feel that.
You have to feel that. But we go through it often. I know you do. We go through it often where if you're surrounded by people who are also in a situation where they have a need to be needed, desire to be desired, right? And love is a trap for them. They're trapped. So you're the one mouse that's just like, wait. They're like, what's wrong with you? Aren't you getting cheese? You good? You're okay. Deal with the pain. We all deal with it. And keep it moving. Who's going to listen to you?
Let's talk about what happens with that when it comes to women. Because, men and women experience this. And on some levels, to the same extent. But there's just the slightly above men that we experience this when it comes to our bodies.
Oh my goodness. So than anything. Yeah.
We begin to self-erase who we are as a person, and we begin to self-identify as who we are in our bodies. Talk about that.
If you're 3 years old, you don't know that your body is special if you're being used. You don't know that. Why would I think that there's something precious when this is how I entered the earth with being abused? And
talk about it.
How? There's no way mentally you're going to tell me as I got older, you need to just appreciate this, appreciate that. It was the same way where you have all these leaders and ministers and pastors in your family, right? And then you go to church because that's where you put on the facade. That's where the family has put on the fake smiles. You're young and everyone sings in the choir. We were singing in the choir our whole lives, right? But you're singing all these songs about my protection, like God's your protection and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, but where was he at? Because ain't nobody protecting me. Don't nobody care about me. So why should I care? Don't come to me about you're special. Your body is special. Boys are taught to say anything that they want. They make jokes about, when you start to develop, right? You got a bra. They can pop your bra. They can say, we can tell you're wearing underwear. When we were younger, they're watching, we can see the line and da-da-da-da. Here I am, 3 years old, constantly being molested and raped and whatever. Right. And family members didn't give 3 craps about it that knew. They were just like, suck it up. Yeah. So you go from that to, oh, yes, my body's a temple. No, it's not. It's a transaction. Because you taught me that. That's what you taught me.
The world taught you that.
Absolutely.
The experiences you had coming into this world, the family, friends, whoever it might have been. They shaped who you are. And I talk about that in the book.
Yes.
I was shaped by my cousins and like boys on the block. And like, I literally was shaped on, this is my ticket. This is my body of mine is my ticket to love. This is my ticket to money. This is my ticket to, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I was a webcam girl after I became a minister. So that ideal of who I was did not go away.
No.
Until I understood that I was not my body, that I was more than my body. That didn't come until years later. And so this whole time, I didn't say, oh, this is who I want to be. I want to be my body. I want to get out here. No, I was shaped by that from the moment I came in.
The moment you're here,
you're having these traumatic experiences and you're having these things that you're trying to reconcile within yourself as to what's right and what's wrong. And you figure this is right.
When it comes to that part with our bodies and things like that, it's been shaped. It's been shaped. And so then you have to do the work, right? To figure out your own validation and your self-worth.
Yeah. Yeah. And move away from that need. Let's talk about leaving. When you talk about that expiration date, it really hits home because that's what most people do is stay past the expiration date. So if you have figured that out, and you finally say, I was in this space. No, I was under this need to be needed. I figured it out. I was past the expiration date. I've gotten sick. Everything is turning colors or whatever. I'm going to pull out. But you have people that are in that space that you did care about that you now see are staying past the expiration date.
Absolutely.
You have expressed that they are past the expiration date. They see that you have left and you are no longer in that environment where you are spoiled. Okay. I don't interact with individuals who are still in those spaces. Not out of a lack of love, but honor and respect and worth for myself so that I'm not trapped back into those spaces. What are your thoughts on that? Because I know where we talk about our worth is not up for debate. In chapter 59, one of those things is recognizing your environment and who you're around. What do you do in those situations?
So my cutoff game is beautiful.
Teach the people.
my cutoff game is wonderful, darling. It's wonderful, darling. I have very particular about my environment, right? So one thing that we've learned growing up, I'm not a plant person. I have a lot of people in my family who love plants and things like that, but I was smart enough to notice when you're younger, you look at trees, right, and plants and things like that. Whatever part of the plant or the tree that's dying can pull everything with it, right? And then the whole thing can go bad, right?
So you got to cut it.
So and then you got to start trimming and cutting. I've noticed that I was very young. And that always stuck with me. So for me, the moment I feel like you are pulling from me and pulling me with you into a dead space, I'm gone. Once I've put my foot down in a certain area, I stay there. There's no wavering. Once I have a set feeling on something, and I don't care how sweet, this one person could have been so great to me, like genuinely loved me, but you're still in that environment. So that tells me you're still in a trap. So speaking of attachments and things like that, what do you feel about people confusing attachment with love and security? It's such a big notion because it happens more than people realize, right?
Yes. I'm laughing because it's my life story. It's why
Never heard of it.
I have a 365-page book. Man, it's so deep. I'm taking breaths because I'm, thinking of situations where that confusion was in place often, multiple times. And I think that in the moments, we don't recognize it. In the moments, we don't recognize that that's what it is. And it's only a lot of times, sometimes mostly people around you can recognize it. And you just probably think they're hating, to be honest, right? They just hating because they're not close to this person or they're not in this position at work or they're, they didn't get the promotion or it's always a reason that you throw people off from it. But really, the truth is you are confusing what's really going on. And for me, it took me to realize that after the fact. I was a person that never actually realized it within it. I had to see it afterwards. And one of the ways that I was able to see that, which I encourage anyone listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, is to journal. I always journaled, even though some of my journals was not, for self-help per se. It was just blabbering about my life, but they actually were helpful. And once I got to the point where I was ready to get help and looking back on those writings and the way I was thinking, the way I was processing those entanglements and realizing, oh yeah, that was not love. Okay.
That's love.
That was not love. If I had my, I would have brought it on the podcast. I might be able to put a screenshot on the edited version of this, but I recently was reading an email I had wrote to an entanglement situation, and I was floored because I felt like I was in love. I felt like this is everything. And I was saying things to this person that really, truly, in hindsight, made absolutely no sense. I was saying things of the nature that, I'm glad you let me do things for you. That was love.
Talk about a trap.
Yeah, that was a trap.
Wow.
That makes me feel like I'm in love with you because I can actually
do things
for you. And when I say do things, I mean literally like if I, took them to the store or like actually do things for them, not in, a sexual way.
Because you were looking at it as like, I'm just so happy to be in your presence.
I'm just so happy to be in your presence.
No matter what it is I'm doing.
I remember saying in this email, and this is what this podcast is for, and I hope that my transparency is, inspiring to other people to start speaking up, because I have no problems with saying some of the really stupid stuff that I did, because it's freeing.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
But I remember saying to this person, I'm like, basically, I'm glad to be in your presence. I'm glad that I can give you money, do things, but whatever, I can do things for you, right? But specifically, I remember saying, it doesn't matter how you feel. I know I need this in this moment. It doesn't matter if you want me or not. I think I need this in this moment. I need you to let me have this in this moment. And that is how you think. That's an attachment. Mm-hmm. That's not love. Mm-hmm. That wasn't me loving them. That wasn't definitely not them loving me. Mm-mm. That was an attachment because of all of the trauma that I've been through previously. And I mentioned it in that email where I said, ever since my divorce, which I was physically and emotionally abused in that divorce, I said I had never felt this type of love since that time. I was attached to that. I don't want to let that go. Yeah. I want to hold on to that. It was sexual. It was mental. It was all of those things all wrapped in one. I was like, I don't care what this person thinks. I'm not letting this go. And that was a full on attachment. A lot of times you're just not going to see it when you're in it.
No, you're not. And, let's call it what it is for some things. I know in my world, we're very transparent here.
We have to. I built it that way because that's what people are not doing.
And the thing
still
is,
sugarcoating their situations and what they've done and what they haven't done. And I'm not going to do that.
Some people confuse the attachment because let's say they've been together for a long time. So they confuse that with security. And a lot of times what they confuse with.
No, I felt secure in
that
space.
It feels secure. and then you have the notion of, you can be completely mistreated, but because they might help pay your cell bill or like one light, this gives them permission to beat the crap out of you and speak to you crazy, right? Yeah. And then you're like, oh, what do I do though? Because somehow they've convinced you mentally that one cell phone bill controls your entire existence. Yeah. And how are you going to survive without me taking care of this one thing for you? And that becomes security. And then there's moments where I know I have to let this go. This isn't love. This isn't security. But then it's the notion of, but if we're not together, he's going to be with somebody else. Mm-hmm. No, I can't. The thoughts of you doing things for other people. And, that also becomes a really big thing with confusing attachments, and once you recognize that it's massive, but it's that hold. But look, you see, I took care of this one thing for you. You're doing like 98 things. Yeah. However, I'm controlling you with this one. And it makes people feel like they're safe. They feel secure. It's not love.
But yeah, so that, attachment when it comes to having that need to be needed is what you usually find when you have the need to be needed, right? If you understand that you understand your worth, you understand, that you have a value to bring to the table in any circumstance, in any situation, whether it's work, church, men, women, whoever you want to be with, doesn't matter, whatever the situation is, community service, volunteering, whatever it is, when you understand what your own worth is, you're not going to have that need.
No one can come at you with anything once you are aware. When you are aware of who you are, and you're going to, let's be very clear. When we say do the work, it doesn't mean magic happens and everything goes away. No. Right? It just means once you do the breaking down of the mask, the barriers, and all the things that come with that, it just means when things come along, you can now recognize it. You know the steps on how to handle it better. And you know what to do. That's why the work is important, because then you can know your value. So then the next time Joe Schmo comes by to love bomb you, you're like, yeah, let's see what's happening with this, because is this you genuinely caring about me? This is about, or is this about to change?
Yeah.
You know, but it's the recognition. You have to have self-worth, but you gotta do the work to get there.
Yes.
You have to do the work to get there, because then you end up in these attachments, this false ideal of love and security in all areas, personal relationships, your worship institutions, anything that you're doing, you have to recognize these things and protect yourself.
Right. Way you can do that is getting help, listening to podcasts like this, you know, getting therapy, all different types of ways that you can get help to recognize it when you don't even know. Maybe right now, some people might have a feeling that something's off, that they don't really truly know. But just whenever you feel like something's off or you don't feel good in your circumstances, you want, maybe you're attached to it and you want those circumstances, but you don't feel good in those circumstances, it's probably time to get help. It's probably time to seek a book like this. It's probably time to seek therapy or a close friend that has knowledge or experience in this area that have come through it. It's time to just ask questions. And that's how you open up. That's how you break the silence. That's how you get from silence to healing, when you just feel like, you know, this is kind of
Once
off.
you get that gut feeling, we all know what that aha moment is for us when in any situation, when you realize if you're crying yourself to sleep, or if you're crying every time you get off the phone with someone that's supposed to love you, or if a person's always talking at you and taking your words and changing it to something and screaming at you all the time, that's not okay. And it's not normal. Like you said, you went back and read the email. For me, it was when I went to a computer and was getting ready to send an email to get permission to go help someone in my family. But the only day that they were available was a Sunday to get some stuff out. I sat there and mind you, I'm grown. I'm a whole grown woman at this point in my life. And I said, wait, what am I doing? Wait, why am I sending it? Wait, what am I doing? I took a step back. I sat back and I was like, yeah, this. What am I doing? I look ridiculous. What has become of me? I know better. And that's when I was just like, yeah, I'm out. You know, yeah, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
Because something has to click to say, this isn't right. No, crying myself to sleep every night doesn't mean this person really loves me. There's something wrong. You know what feeling you get. You know what you hear in your head. You know what voices you know all of these signs, whatever works for you, that says, go. Like, excuse me, this has expired 2 months ago. Why are you still here?
Yes.
And you're going to get worse. And you're going to feel sick. And you're going to feel nauseous. And nothing's going to seem like it's going right, because you should have been left a long time ago, which is why we're here, because we didn't have us back then, but we have us now. So the us now is going to help you get there. That's the plan.
Exactly.
So helping people break free from these attachments that are definitely masked as love and security. We're hoping that people take this with them and to help them move further along. And with that being said, I do want to mention in the book, No More Secrets on Sunday, there are some chapters where the whole book is amazing, by the way. If you don't have your book, please go get it. But in the back, there's journal prompts, right? Prompts on how to detach yourself from the attachments, how to release yourself from attachments, and then the courage to do so. And I think for the people who really need that, do you have some examples of some of those things in the book?
So there's, you know, in the back of No More Secrets, there are journal prompts, and 2 chapters are dedicated. One is dedicated to releasing attachments, and the other is dedicated to like finding courage in these situations. So like with attachments, it's like 44 different prompts. So this is in depth to give you the ability to go deep. This is really for you to come out of it as you're doing these prompts. One of the examples would be just, you know, what fears arise when I think about letting go of certain attachments, because we all know that's why we stay in those attachments is because of fear. So first, recognizing those fears, writing those down, getting those out of your mind and your heart, and writing them on paper and seeing them and looking at them gets you started there. Then there's, you know, the stories that you're telling yourself. What stories am I telling myself that keep me stuck in unhealthy attachments? Sometimes we don't recognize them, but when we can sit down and write and think and really get those out of our head, what are we really telling ourselves? We'll start to see, just like you saw when you were looking at that email and you were like, wait a second, you had to think about it and you was like, what am I doing here? So that, that prompt will help as well. And then a lot of times when you're ready to go, you still might not have the courage to do it.
Which is not easy. You need some help with some courage.
Right. So, we have prompts that will prompt you into giving you a better, path towards courage. So just asking yourself questions like, how can I speak up more authentically in the relationships that I'm in? Or, what limiting beliefs keep me from acting courageous? Because a lot of times we think we don't have courage, and it's really just because of one little limiting belief that we have, that my voice is, I'm unheard. Right? The people don't listen to me. So if that's a belief that you have, then you're not going to have that courage. But if these prompts will start to bring all of those things out, and you'll start to recognize them, and it gives you the courage to go ahead and release those attachments and move away from the need to be needed.
And I think that's beautiful. Starting is always the hardest part of anything, right? Or feeling like it's worth the effort or the time. And here's what I want to do. I want to encourage everyone. If you have never journaled, and you probably have journaled a billion times over, but if you never journaled honestly, when you really get into the thick of things, I'm going to encourage everyone to just take a moment to really start writing some stuff down. Just write down your journey. Even if it brings you tears, just write it down, because there might be areas where you don't realize I was really in a trap. I was really in the need to be needed. Because then once you write those things down, I think once it's written, you can go back, such as we have plenty of times, and say, now I know where to pinpoint where that was. It might help some people find the core or the source. And then be able to go from there and build up. And can you also just let us know, I don't care, send a quote, send something to tell us, hey, I journaled. Yes. I think it's important. If you can definitely do that, go ahead and you can comment on the page and just say, hey, I've journaled today, or let us know that you're journaling. We want to help you heal. That is the point of this. You don't have to feel like you have the need to be needed or desire to be desired and all those things. You can grow from these things. You can identify the attachments that are unhealthy. Notice what's love and what's not love. Notice what's, manipulation. And learn your value through the process, I think is very important. And I surely hope that many people are touched by this today.
Yeah, same here. And if you need a space, you can send out an SOS. So we have a support group called the SOS Community. Yes. If you want to just kind of plug that a little bit, because a lot of times they might get the book and get the prompts and they're writing, and some of these prompts will break you down. They will have you in buckets of tears because your nervous system is starting to recognize that you don't want the same thing, and is trying to find that reconciliation between who you are now and who you used to be and who you need to become. And so you might need some help with that. So tell them a little bit about that community.
There will be a mental battle going on. Absolutely.
Yes.
SOS is a beautiful, beautiful way to reach out. Even if you're journaling and you just have a thought and you want to share it, that is your safe space. There is no judgment there. It's on Facebook, and you can just find SOS and just mention something. You might say, hey, this came up today. This is how I'm feeling, or this is what's going on.
Private, very secure, very safe. I'll have the links below this podcast on YouTube. And then you can just find the SOS Community on Facebook.
On Facebook. And I strongly encourage you to use that and share the links with your friends. Share it. If you have book clubs and groups, I encourage you to not just buy the book, but buy the book and start a club. Let us know that you're doing these things, because you also want to heal your family members, your friends. Take it beyond your four walls. I think it's very important to do so.
Yeah, definitely.
So go ahead and click on those links when you see them. And we're just so happy that you joined us on No More Secrets on Sunday podcast. And please, let's be free from needing to be needed and falling for those love traps.
We're not doing
none of that.
We think that healing has to be, it's messy, but it also, there is joy in it, and we can have laughter and we can have fun.
Absolutely.
So be prepared for shenanigans with us as well. Yes. All right. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We're glad you were able to join us. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share and connect with our growing community. Remember, your voice matters, and your healing is sacred, and your story has the power to inspire. Until the next time, keep shattering silence and reclaim your truth.